Well, Tom and I first became members of the church in the 40s. Tom became a member through his parents while he was fighting in World War II. And after the war, I joined the church either in the fall of 45 or the early spring of 46. And David Reese Jones was the pastor. He was very dear to us and almost a father image to me. He was here from 44 to 54. And in 1954, a young man by the name of Leon Wilder became the interim pastor while we were searching for a regular, full-time one. And it ended up that Leon became the next pastor of the church. And he was here for about 3 years. And then Jim Fenner came here in 1957 and was here for 3 or 4 years. I'd like to have the exact chronology there. Do you have something to add at this point?
Well, I think it was most unusual with Leon. The nominating committee did not endorse him. So they put his name up with one other person probably, and the congregation voted him in. But it was...
We went against the rules of the Presbyterian.
He didn't have the endorsement of the nominating committee. He was right out of seminary. He'd never had a church before. This would be his first church. And he was a nice fellow, and I didn't have anything against him, except I thought we needed more experienced pastor. I'll tell you another story that had a tragic ending to it. Tom Buchanan, his wife, was our organist for many years. And he and I were the ushers every Sunday for 5 years, starting about January 46. Well, we were the ushers. We had no usher committee or list or anything like that. If he couldn't be there, he got a replacement. If I couldn't be there, I got a replacement. And we did that for 5 years, and unfortunately, Tom killed himself. He was the assistant postmaster, and he aspired to be the postmaster, and they appointed somebody else. And he couldn't take it. Anyway, that broke up our partnership on being ushers, and then they started having a usher committee and named people for each Sunday. But we did it ourselves for 5 years, from about 46 to 51.
Back to the chronology of the ministers, Jim Fenner was a retired Air Force, and he went to Princeton Seminary and became a Presbyterian minister, and he came to us in the summer of 1957. And then around 1960 or early 60s, Wayne Bryan became the minister here, our pastor. And he was here through about 65 or 66. And as these pastors came and went, of course, we did have interim pastors, and many of them retired Presbyterian ministers. One of them in the late 50s was Jesse Wilson, and he was a retired Baptist USA missionary. And he became a Presbyterian during that time and was our interim minister in the late 50s, and was very, very well received and very, very well liked. And that was between Fenner and Bryan. Then Bryan was here.
You can tell Jesse's son George?
You tell about that.
Well, Mr. Jesse Wilson had a son named George, and he was a Presbyterian minister. And I believe for a short time he was our minister, wasn't he?
No, but he was here. He lived here for a while and substituted.
Maybe between ministers he was an interim minister. And
substitute.
And you and I were talking about the Monterey Peninsula. I think that's where he lives now. His sister, is his sister still living?
So far as I know.
Okay. His sister and her husband lived there, and his mother went out there and died out there.
His mother was a native of Nacogdoches. She was a Perkins. Mr. Perkins was one of the most influential men in that in those years in Nacogdoches. And her sister continued to live here, Virginia, and Virginia married A.L. Nelson, Langston Nelson, a physician here for many years. And we're back now to after Wayne, Bryan, and the next minister was Charles Schwenke. He was here for a few years until 1970, and he gave up the ministry. He still, I think, filled in pulpits, but he gave up the ministry as a profession in 1970. The next one was Charles Pullen, Chuck Pullen. Charles Schwenke was Chuck, and the next one was also Chuck. Chuck Pullen was here for several years, for 7 or 8 years. And then came Jim Sparks in 1979, the early part of 79. So we had stability, a long period of stability, and I hope we're into another long period of stability as far as pastors are concerned, because we've been very fortunate in both Jim and in Steve.
Over the years, most of our ministers were had their theological training at the Austin Theological Seminary in Austin, Texas. But we did have a few from McCormick in Chicago. And who was the man from Princeton?
Jim Fenner.
Jim Fenner. We had one minister from the Princeton Seminary. As you know, Princeton University is a Presbyterian school. I believe Woodrow Wilson was president of Princeton before he became president of the United States.
The congregation has been stabilized almost the entire time. We had nearly as many members as in the 40s as we have now. But we surely have more who come to church regularly now, and that's good. And of course we have the best choir in town. We're very fortunate there. And
yeah, I want to say we do have a wonderful choir, and it adds a lot to the service. It's a choir that would be very suitable in a church 10 times as big as ours.
Do you have any questions you'd like to ask us, or
any positive memories that stand out that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, I should have thought upon this.
What's your question?
Any positive memories that you'd like to recall? It's just been a big part of our lives, all of our married life. And he has served as a deacon and an elder, several terms as an elder. And I have served as an elder and a church school teacher. And I sang in the choir for about 30 years. And so it's been just a focal point in our lives, and I'm happy to say that.
I went to Sunday school at the Westminister Presbyterian Church as a boy when I belonged to the Presbyterian Church U.S., which was across from the Fredonia Hotel. And the lady that taught it was not a Presbyterian. I think she was from the Christian church. But she had about 10 or 12 boys anywhere from 12 to 15 years of age, and we came every Sunday.
One of the darkest periods was when some of our steadfast members broke away to form the Grace Bible Church. And that was in 1938. That was before either one of us had any connection to the church. The only member that we have now, well, Leella was a member then, and John Lewis, but Claudine McKinney was a part of the breakaway, and she came back to us, we're happy to say, in the early 80s.
And her husband Jack also.
Oh yes, and he came back. Tom, that's for you to say.
Well, they were tearing a church down. It was a Presbyterian Church of the U.S., a Southern Presbyterian Church, and the church had been disbanded and they wanted to do something with the land, so they were tearing it down. It's painted by a very famous painter who at one time was on the faculty of Stephen F. Austin. Her name was Janet Turner.
Janet Turner.
Janet Turner. And she had at least a national reputation, if not international.
As a printer and as a watercolorist.
Westminister Presbyterian Church was built in 1930. I was born in 1925, so I don't remember those early years. But I only lived maybe 2 blocks from church, and I walked to Sunday school and church every Sunday. And I lived where Kroger's is presently located. And after I was inducted into the service and went overseas and returned in 1950, I was ordained a deacon with Reverend David Reese Jones was our pastor at that time. Then on January 13th, 1974, I was ordained as an elder in the Westminister Presbyterian Church. In some of those early years, I served as a financial secretary for some 11 years. I taught junior high school Sunday school class for 6 years. And I don't have much other. I was in a Sunday school class of J. Frank Bell. And he was a principal up in the Nacogdoches Independent School District at that time. But he was our Sunday school teacher. And we all loved this gentleman. He was wonderful. And then he had a son by the name of Dr. Frank Bell. But he was not a member of our church. I don't know where he ended up. Now, do you have any questions you want to ask me?
What are some of the more favorite memories you have of your time with the church? Or anything that stands out in your memory of those early years in the church?
Well,
You were pretty young when the
I
Grace Bible Church broke off from the
Beg pardon?
church. You were pretty young when Grace Bible
Yes,
Church broke
yes,
off
I
in
was.
'38.
yeah, 1938.
That was before the
I was
riots.
12 years of age when that separation came.
Do you remember anything about that?
No. No. I don't have any recollection of that. Trying to look through some of these old Presbyterian notes.
Did you go to the church before this building was built?
No. If I did, I don't remember. I think the church was located on the southeast corner of Main Street and Mound.
Okay.
At least that's what I was told. That's where the church got its beginning. And then they built that church in the present location at 903 North Street.
Right.
Back in 1930, at least that's what the cornerstone reads. And I don't remember any of that either, because I was too young to remember that. But my parents were active in the church. And we had several different ministers.
Do you have a favorite story or a memory about any of the pastors that come to mind?
No, I don't.
Okay.
None that I would want to repeat.
Or any church activity that you remember particularly fondly, ice cream socials or
No, I don't have,
anything?
I don't have an answer for that one either.
All right. All right. Well, thanks. That helps.
I'm not a very good subject to be talking to, apparently.
Downtown. And I said, well, Johnny said the church was built in 30. And he said, well, that would have been 31. We wouldn't have been over there then, would we? I mean, you know, why wouldn't they have played at unless they still use that other building?
Well, Peggy Wright mentioned that there was a church, not the original Westminster church, but there was another Presbyterian church across from Fredonia, there where the duck pond or fountain is. And they have a picture of it being torn
Now,
down.
that's where I thought it was. See, I thought it was on Hospital and Fredonia.
But they said that was not the original Presbyterian Westminster church. That was either a
That was
USA
Episcopal.
or some
That was
other form
that
of
was the
Presbyterian
south-
church.
West corner of the present
Fredonia Hospital.
Fredonia, and
Hotel.
what is that street that,
Behind,
Hospital.
hospital's in front, but the street behind
that ties into Mound Street?
it runs right into Cox.
Church?
The Cox
Mound
Communication.
and North Fredonia. There was an Episcopal church there on that corner.
That's right off of Washington Square, right
Yes,
across the
yes.
street from
On
there.
that southwest corner of Washington Square. Now, here's an usher list for 1964.
Who's on that? Oh, you at the whole list?
Yeah, got the whole list if you want.
Budget for 1961.
Here's one, and here's one for 59.
Who was our minister then?
Yeah, let's see, the following is charter members.
Yeah, right.
And I think there was something mentioned in this thing. I wasn't, I was in the church at the time, but I'll admit that I wasn't much of that, because I think I was a bride then. And then a little later I was a mother of one child and twins, and I didn't have know much.
Pretty busy.
Well, you wouldn't say I was just not busy, I would say that. Did you ever hear of Buchanan? What in the world was her first name? I don't know. Anyway, she was a primary teacher. And somewhere along there, of course, my children were in Sunday school by then. And I took her place for a while. I was certainly glad when they grew out of primary, or primer, whatever they called it, up to the junior. And so I graduated to junior. And then I graduated to whatever other it was. And finally I got to senior. And Steele Wright, you didn't know him. Steele Wright helped me. He was the oldest of the Wright boys. Because I know sometime I was doing something with going by the book, you know. And I remember quite well that he corrected me on something and we disagreed on whatever. It's strange that something like that
Sticks in your mind.
Yeah.
What year did you come to the church?
I think it's in 38.
In 38?
That's the biggest reason I remember that. That was the year I was married.
Okay.
And my husband was, I don't know what he was, if anything. But anyway, he was, his business was right next door to something down there that the camels, yeah, the boys, like a service station or some little garage or something that was on the corner right downtown.
The Campbell Cox, you think?
No, Camel was the name,
Campbell.
surname.
All right.
And his sons, I guess it was his sons, it could have been, I'm sure it was. They became friends, and that's how we went to the Presbyterian church.
Oh.
Because I guess he went with me, I don't remember. Maybe he was already a member there, that's beyond me. That was it, then, no, the name was Camel. And that leads up to the point that they were the sons of the Presbyterian minister at that time. That's the connection I'm giving you.
Okay.
So I guess that's about all there is to that. No, I have quite a lot of material here for you. If you're so interested in it or seeing any of it or having it.
All right. Well, thank you.
Whatever. And, and there's one thing that was, I was meant, you like this, I think.
All right.
I wrote down the pastors and I couldn't remember. And I put it out, Brother Crawford. You'll notice that we called him brother in those days.
Crawford.
I haven't heard that expression in the Presbyterian church in a long time. And then next was Wayne Bryan. Did you ever hear him?
No.
And next one is Swinky.
Swinky?
Swinky.
Okay.
And the next one I have written here, the airplane tinker. I named him that.
Named him my airplane tinker, huh?
I have no idea who his name was, but he had a plane out at the airport, and for some reason or other he liked to go out and tinker with the airplane or see that it was something or other, instead of, he wasn't very attentive at the church.
Oh.
And the next was Jim Sparks. As far as I know, we loved him. Still love him. He's still living.
Mm-hmm.
And why I wrote those down, I don't know. But you wanted to know a little bit of what I knew, and that's about all I know about pastors.
Can you relate some stories or favorite memories about the church? Something that comes to mind? A special time or something of special meaning for you?
Well, I don't know. Well, maybe. I guess the meaning is special meaning to me would be when my children joined the church. I have a daughter and a son. I even drug out 2 pictures of my sons there because I didn't have one in there of him.
Very handsome.
Well, the one that very serious one there was not only serious, he was very intelligent, and is still living. He lives in Houston and is an attorney. And the other funny one there is Carol, and he was one of the twins. That was he and that pretty girl over there over the top were the twins. Oh, but Carol was just a sight. You might know his wife, at the time, Elaine,
Mm-hmm.
well, at that time, of course. And he died in 83, I believe it is, the same year my husband died. Carol died, and then a few months, Tim died. So
It's a lot to
that
go
was
through.
that was the family, you know.
So it made it a hard year.
Well, it wasn't easy. But I don't know. What do you want to know?
Well, do you think of
Oh,
any...
something about the church, something special. I guess I thought so many things were special. I was,
Or maybe real personal, what it meant to you over the years.
Well, what it meant to me, well, I just say it just meant everything to me, especially to the years of hardship, and that was several years of hardship then. And it just filled in everything for me from that time. I don't know how to explain it. I guess the Lord was helping me along through then. And as I said, I participated in, well, not everything by any means, but I was in the choir. I just took up a seat because I didn't have very many. I couldn't sing much, but I was there. And I participated in the church school throughout when they graduated from high school. Then I quit then. And I don't know what else I've done. Women's work and that sort of thing. So, that was about it, I guess.
Well, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Do I get a retake?
Yeah, I'll edit it out.
You'll edit it, okay.
Your name.
We moved here to Nacogdoches in December of 2000. Ray and I wanted to find a church home for our family, and we came from two very different religious backgrounds. I was raised Catholic, he was raised Baptist, so we wanted to find one in the middle that we could both be comfortable at. When I started searching, I went to all the different churches here in Nacogdoches. I went to many churches. And then one weekend while we were visiting his sister up in Bonham, Texas, they had just joined First Presbyterian up there. So we went to a service with them, and we were both very impressed. And I said, well, let me look and see if there is a Presbyterian here in Nacogdoches. I missed it in my searches. So I came here one week. I remember I came and Don Gregory was leading the service. He mentioned in his service about that you were looking for an interim pastor. I guess Jim Sparks had recently left. I never got to meet Reverend Sparks. So I came that day, and as I left the church, I saw a young couple out front that I stopped and was asking some questions, and I happened to be Don and Jane's son. He introduced me to Jane Gregory, who took me around, gave me a tour of the church, showed me the nursery, the Sunday school rooms and all. She was just wonderful. She introduced me to a lot of people who I don't remember now. The only one I remember meeting was Joan Smith. She was very nice, very gracious. So the following week I came back with Erin. Matthew was too young for Sunday school, but I brought her back and brought her to the Sunday school class where Linda Henderson was teaching. I sat in there and observed that, and I was impressed. Erin was having fun, and it was a great class. But as I was sitting there, right behind the curtain, and we were in the Christian Education Building, and behind the curtain I could hear a group of people laughing and talking and having fun. And I asked Linda who was in that group, and she said that was Terry Moring's Sunday school class. And I said, well, I want to be in there. So the following following week, we all came. Aaron went to Sunday school, Matthew in the nursery. I went to Terry's class and met some wonderful people there. I remember meeting Linda Thompson, Betsy Tucker. Oh, good at Pat Barnett was there, Elise Gavin, and some others. A great class. I knew I was going to enjoy that class. Ray came down and met us here for service, and he agreed. He was very impressed. He liked the service. We finally found one that we were both comfortable with. So that we officially joined the church July 7th of 02. And Jeff Coker was here. We joined, and then a month later, in August of 02, he baptized Aaron and Matthew here. Beautiful service. Debbie Dalton picked out some special songs. It had myself and my family members just crying in the service. It was beautiful. And we've been members here for 4 years now. Then Steve came, and another blessing here in the church. His interest in the children and his exuberance, it just has been wonderful for us. Then he started his classes, what it means to be a Presbyterian. And I was learning so much in Terry's class, but then I came to his classes, and the more I learned about the beliefs of the Presbyterian church, and I finally told Steve that I think I've been a Presbyterian all my life and never knew it. It fits so well with my beliefs. We feel blessed. I truly believe the Lord brought us here to Nacogdoches to raise our family, and He brought us to this church. We are at home here at Westminister Presbyterian.
All right, now give your name and your kids and husband's
Okay.
name.
I am Judy Taylor, married to Ray Taylor. Our children are Aaron, who is 9 years old, and Matthew, who is 6 years old.
My name is Katie Haney, and I've been a choir member at the Westminster Presbyterian Church for 3.5 years. And probably my greatest memory was when I sang a special in the service and Mary Jane Mann played the organ.
Did you really say that? My name is Carissa Dean, and I've been a choir member at Westminster for about 2 years now. And there are no special memories that I have. I just love them all. I love singing with everybody and going to church and meeting everyone. And that's it.